Gender identity versus dissociative identity. That's what we're talking about in today's video. So hello everyone, my name is Autumn Asphodel and I'm a coach to help you live your best life. And we're talking about dealing with a gender identity disorder or dissociative identity disorder. They may not seem similar, but there is some overlap here. And some people can be quite confused onto the differences. So enjoy the video. Gender identity and dissociative disorders can intertwine, and it may even confuse the person dealing with the problems. But they are distinctly different, and it's important to differentiate them and find the root cause of the issues one is facing. Gender identity disorder is a condition in which someone who is born as one sex identifies as the opposite sex. For instance, someone who is born a male that identifies as female. Gender dysphoria is a symptom that those with gender identity disorder have. The dysphoria experience is specifically related to the sex they were born as. Another example is a person who is born male, feeling uncomfortable with their male genitals, facial structure, and body structure. Transgender, more specifically transsexual, is the term used to describe people who have gender identity disorder. The remedy for this condition is often to transition to the sex they identify with. While hormone replacement therapy and surgery is not perfect, it can be enough to eliminate dysphoria, which is often debilitating. Dissociative identity disorder, previously known as multiple personality disorder, is a condition in which an individual has endured trauma during childhood that they developed altered personality states by dissociating themselves from the abuse. These altered personalities develop on their own as the child's mind has become shattered from abuse. The altered personalities can have different names, backgrounds, appearances, way of speaking, and genders. The remedy for this disorder is integration, where the individual goes through intense therapy to uncover their fragmented personality states, learn to accept their trauma and abuse, and integrate the personality that held that trauma into their core personality, and creating a more rounded whole. Being transgender is one of the most difficult things that someone can deal with because you have to physically change your body in order to remedy the problems that come from having dysphoria about your physical body. Dissociative identity disorder is another whole complex system there where many people may not know these different personalities that hold trauma, and they live in denial for many, many years of their life as their whole world just falls apart because they're not able to remember things that they have done. So if that is the case, what's the similarities between these two? Is there similarities between these two? There actually is a big overlap here that can be quite confusing for those with dissociative identity disorder and if they think that they're transgender. While these two disorders may not sound even remotely similar, there actually is an overlap. What if the person with dissociative identity disorder has an altered personality that is the opposite sex of the body? What if the body is female, but the personality is male? Does that make the person transgender? That is where things get a bit complex. First, altered personalities in someone who has DID form due to past trauma. They can be male or female, it doesn't really matter, but the trauma is what is key here. While gender identity disorder and being transgender isn't considered a mental illness, what if for some people, like in this case, it is? What if the trauma brought about the splitting of personality and actually made someone think they were transgender? This can be incredibly confusing for those with DID since they may have an altered personality that doesn't feel comfortable in their body, but the question remains, is the person transgender? An altered personality is part of a unified core that has been separated into multiple parts. These parts can develop independently, so someone who is born female but has a male personality, yes, that personality will experience gender dysphoria and sometimes the need to transition. Technically, this personality is transgender since they experience gender dysphoria and have the desire to transition. However, the core personality doesn't experience dysphoria and is fine as their birth sex. What if the individual has many personalities, most of which are the opposite sex and experience gender dysphoria? This can be incredibly confusing for those with DID since they may not be able to discern between what they really want to do and what their alter personalities want to do. And another question has to be asked. What if the alter personality does transition? How does that impact the rest of the personalities? In order to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria and being transgender, there should be no other causes of the feelings of discomfort with one sex. In this case, the person with DID experiences gender dysphoria only from a part of them that is the opposite sex of what they were born as. While this is technically defined as transgender, the root cause of the disorder should be taken into consideration first, meaning the DID has to be sorted out before the individual transitions. Only then will the true answer emerge if the person is actually transgender or not. Gender and mental health conditions can get quite confusing, making us doubt ourselves and our abilities. But getting proper help and learning that you are not alone helps tremendously. Find some helpful resources and you can and will properly cope with and overcome your challenges in life. Let me know how this works for you. Have a great day. While there is a clear difference between those who have gender identity disorder, who are transgender, and those who have dissociative identity disorder, the fact remains that both of these conditions are very difficult for one to manage. But if you get to the root cause of the problems, if you do have a dissociative type of disorder, if you get to the root cause of this disorder and you remedy that, if you work through therapy and you're able to remedy the problems, you will have an answer as to whether or not you are transgender. Always working on yourself first, your own mental health, is always the best thing to do. Now, in my personal case, the first thing that was tackled was the transgender related things. And I wish that it was the opposite, that I tackled my mental health problems first. But when you are dealing with such high gender dysphoria, it was almost like everything else was just blocked out. I couldn't even think about any of the mental health issues because I wasn't comfortable with who I was. I first had to be comfortable with who I was by transitioning in order for me to open up to a therapist about my past trauma and my past issues that was brought on, or that was unleashed rather, by me transitioning, being able to open up and to share these experiences because I was comfortable with myself. But as I always say, it should always be you deal with the mental health issues first before you dive into something that is so life-changing, such as transitioning. That should always be number one. So don't necessarily follow in my example where I dealt with the transgender stuff first, because I'm just speaking from what may be the best for a lot of people. So talk with a therapist who can help you deal with these problems, and you will know whether or not you wish to transition. So be sure to check out the amazing merchandise over at Asphodel Shop for some inspiring designs. I'm sure you'll find something amazing. Also, become a member of $5 up and above to get early access to new content before it is publicly released to anyone else. We're talking weeks and months ahead of anyone else. You'll get early access to it for $5 up and above. So, you all take care. Have a great one. Let me know what your thoughts are on this subject, and I'll see you all later. You take care. Bye-bye.